As we get further and further into 2026, I have to say one thing about the All Elite Wrestling roster. They are certainly trying all kinds of stuff to get fans invested in their weekly television programs. Now, the real question is it good stuff? Is it bad stuff? Is it the same stuff that they've done for months and months and the last number of years? And the answer to that is yes to all of it. I'm John Renton with my review of AEW Dynamite from the Edition Financial Arena in Orlando, Florida. Yeah, I know I said I was going to take a break. You know what? Fuck it. Why not review some wrestling? Why not just dissolve the remaining sanity that I have, trying to figure out why in the world Tony Khan will just not understand that there are certain things he can do on his shows to advance things without doing everything and just getting to where even the best stuff feels like it's stretched out, or the best stuff just basically gets bogged down in a bunch of bullshit. So anyway, speaking of which, well, they're in Orlando. That's actually unfair to Orlando. It's not their fault the Magic suck. So the capacity for the arena apparently is around 10,000. They had about 5,000 people there. And I will say the fans were pretty loud for the most part. And Taz is back on commentary. I'm going to say this much. Taz does do some good commentary, but the stuff with him protecting his son, it's kind of annoying. It's kind of just, it doesn't really add anything. Like, oh, they tried to take out my son. Well, maybe you should have raised your kid better. Maybe you should have raised your kid to, I don't know, advance his career a little more, because he is in the same goddamn place that he was a number of years ago. So anyway, here's Shivani to introduce MJF. The Golden Shower of Pyro. MJF channeling Ric Flair with this promo. This belt costs more than all y'all will ever earn. Riches and such and all that. And I will say that it was a pretty good promo, and it felt like a real wrestling program, that is. Here's Brody King to a big pop and the barks and all that, and he could rip out MJF's spine because apparently Brody King watched The Running Man. It's a shame they only did one version of The Running Man. They didn't do another one recently. Shut your you-know-what mouths. Poor Glenn Powell. It was not his fault that movie wasn't good. But MJF is just a bitch. But Alicia's so good he's on top of it. And, we're going here all night, and I could continue to channel Buck Cherry if I wanted to ruin their music more. But I already did with the Mercy review. Check that out if you want. He wants a title match. MJF calls him no bark, all bark, no bite. And who have you beaten? He's beaten schlubs. To be fair, he's not wrong. Brody King has beaten talent before, but recently he's been beating jobbers. And Brody barks, and then MJF runs. Not bad. It actually felt like a real wrestling program. I don't mind waiting a couple weeks to see MJF versus Brody. MJF's going to win, but I think that it will probably be better than what MJF did with Bandito, even though I didn't mind that, unlike some people. So then we get to a trios title recap. Okay, so on Collision, it was announced, by the way, as Dynamite was getting going. Actually, I think it was before Dynamite was even fully rolling, that Powerhouse Hobbs was on his way out. His contract was up. They had offered him he no hard feelings, but he wanted to go elsewhere. Hobbs is in at least his early to mid-30s. And it's been stop-start with him. I'm not saying he could be a world champion no matter where he goes, but he can be utilized a whole lot better than he had been in AEW at times. Now, I do want to say that wherever Hobbs goes, bless him. If he doesn't like what WWE offers and he ends up coming back to AEW, all the best, regardless. And those that are actual legit fans will want the best for professional wrestlers, whether they leave AEW, or they leave WWE, or they leave New Japan because Bushiroad is cleaning house. Hiromu Takahashi apparently is leaving. I think Bushiroad is getting ready to sell the company because I don't think they want to do this shit anymore. That's just a little blue sky thing right there. They just had 46,000 in Tokyo Dome. Tanahashi's now the president, or the official president, as he's retiring. Or has retired, and I don't know what New Japan's doing. You can have a talent turnover, you can do that stuff, but Naito, Bushi, David Finlay, Clark Connors, the Bullet Club's gone, thank God, until Tony Khan revives it in AEW by gobbling up a bunch of people. But I wish Hobbs nothing but the best. I just hope they don't give him a stupid name. He's probably going to the main roster. I would argue him and Ricky Saints, the former Ricky Starks, as a duo would actually be pretty good. I just don't think we're going to get that. So there you go. Powerhouse Hobbs is gone and all the best. So a picture was floating around of Hangman Page and the villain himself. You know, the guy that decided to be with an inebriated 16-year-old wrestling student. Marty Scurll, who I'm referring to. By the way, miss me with the, age of consent in the UK. If you are near 30 and you are trying to go for a 16-year-old girl, except to take her home to her parents so she can actually be okay, then no, that's fucking ridiculous. And I'd say the same thing if it was a 16-year-old boy and a 30-year-old woman. It's freaking ridiculous. By the way, Serena Deeb. Boy, she's got great choice in men, doesn't she? Being with Marty Scurll, all that. Now, I don't know if it's a recent pick, if it's an old pick that's, been reposted. I don't know. It kind of looks like current Hangman. And you got Marty Scurll, who, by the way, if he wasn't guilty, if just somehow he was being blacklisted for something that he didn't do, guess what? Another company would take a chance on him. A U.S. company would have taken a chance on him. More UK promotions might have taken a chance on him. You don't hear a peep about Marty Scurll because of what he fucking did. So no, I don't feel bad for Marty Scurll being banned. And here's the thing, Hangman, maybe, the Pepsi Man was actually right about certain things that Hangman actually, buys into. Maybe he is kind of an empty-headed dipshit. He stands up for really good shit. The abolish ICE stuff and all that. I'm not saying that Hangman is, without certain merits and isn't a good guy in some respects. But if you're not going to cut ties with somebody that did that shit, then yeah, you're not able to necessarily walk on water, and you don't actually appear to be anybody except kind of a two-faced son of a bitch. Now, we all got skeletons in our closet, all that stuff. We all got stuff that we don't want people to find out. Like secrets that we have buried. None of the secrets that I have or any of my friends have would involve being around abusers like that. And people that have been blacklisted from a particular line of business that they were decent at, but here's the thing, they're not worth the trouble. Same with Joey Ryan and the Bucks. It's still going on, guys. It's the thing. AEW is really no better than WWE getting in bed with the current pig shit administration and Triple H talking about being, a health nut and everything, and people getting healthy. That guy that juiced up so many goddamn times that it got to the point where by 2004, he had to start cutting down. So anyway, yeah, Hangman probably shouldn't have done that. Shouldn't have done that at all. Cut ties with the abusive people. So that being said, let's get to what the team names could be. Mike Bailey, a.k.a. Fuck You Speedball, said, saw one of the names, a horsecock. I don't necessarily know if I'm going to get in trouble for that one. Jet Set Rodeo, that's pretty good. And somebody else said Air Horse 1. I do like that. I do like Air Horse 1. It's certainly full of less bullshit than the current Air Force 1. So, speaking of which, let's have Samoa Joe versus Fuck You Speedball. Shibata and Hook interfered later, after Joe had beaten him up, and then Shibata did some kind of apron spot because his new brain doesn't make him, make good decisions. And heel hook and a rope break, and I'm talking a heel hook by Joe, not a heel hook by Hook. And Mike Bailey does, double knees, he does some kicks, he does, it's going a bit long here, and I know it probably only went about 10 minutes, and I know that Bailey is the Trios champion, but I just visually, whether Bailey is a black belt in Taekwondo, whatever, Joe should have wiped the floor with him. He just should have. Shibata does end up crouching Speedball and a muscle buster. I didn't hate it, at least it made sense, but this OPP stuff, and I know it's the ops, just isn't working for me. Speaking of things that aren't working for me, we go to Death Riders, Mox, Yuta, and Garcia with Shafir, who apparently are faces now because they're facing the Don Callis family. Lance Archer, Hechicero, and Rocky Romero. Gee, I wonder which one's taking the pin, Rocky. I wonder which one. So it's a street fight. Why are these people feuding, and why am I supposed to care? I mean, honestly, regardless of how I feel about Wheeler Yuta being a waste of skin, flesh, and blood, and every fluid that could belong to an actual human that could make use of it, however I feel about Garcia basically being a waste of a roster spot, and I hate Bryan Danielson for advocating for these two to get more TV time, because apparently Bryan Danielson doesn't make good decisions, like not getting his neck done. And, it's uncomfortable for him to travel. He hasn't wrestled since Wrestle Dream 2024. He shouldn't wrestle again. And then Moxley, and I don't care. You can be upset that I call him Dick the Boozer. It's just a fun name. I don't wish for him to relapse, and he's not, and good for him. He's a happier person. And Shafir just sucks. But they're the faces, and I'm sorry, but Lance Archer, in any way, shape, or form, selling for any of these guys. Moxley, okay, they faced off before, but Garcia, Yuta, they don't look like they could hurt a piece of rice paper. Yuta got drilled with a chokeslam, unfortunately got back up. I will live to see him have the shit beaten out of him repeatedly until he learns he doesn't fucking belong here. Archer and Hechicero deserve better. And then they bring out a barbed wire board with glass because Moxley can't help himself because he can't fucking work without doing this shit. And I don't care that people get upset about that. Either learn to work, Mox, or stop being lazy, or just fucking quit. Just fucking quit. Or just fucking admit that you don't care anymore. So Pac then shows up on crutches, so we know it's a work, because if he was actually hurt, then there you go. He hits Archer, and then Claudio hits Archer with a crutch and everything. And just take a shit on Lance Archer White, don't you? Having to sell for this stupid group. And yes, Lance Archer is near 50. And I'm not saying Lance Archer can be a world champion. But this is a guy that they could have done so much with, and no. He's having to... Claudio, I don't care how good he is. I don't want to see him anymore. Pac is inflated to the point that he can barely move. And then Yuta and Garcia, acting like they belong in the fucking big leagues. Rocky got beaten. There you go. And then apparently Moxley said something to Callis. And we are actually going to get more of this. Why? Why are we getting more of this? Why is this feud happening? So anyway, Tekla spits at the camera while Julia and Sky watch because I guess somebody wanted a taste of toxic. You're all heathens. It's the year of sin. Okay. Technically, everybody sins every year. FTR had a child in a wheelchair that looked like Stokely, but, well, that's actually unfair. Children can grow up. Against Jordan Oliver and Alec Price, who recently were involved in something on an indie show where MJF faced one. I think he faced Alec, I believe. And they both got signed to AEW. I've seen Jordan Oliver on a couple indie shows. He's not bad. I haven't seen much of Alec. I get what they were trying to do, but really this should have been about 2 minutes. Boom, boom. A couple moves from these guys, and then FTR should have wiped the floor with them. It seemed to go longer than it needed to. FTR won. And then Willow, Stat, and Harley accept the challenge. The Triangle of Madness, almost as Sisters of Sin. The Triangle of Madness laid out. So it's Julia versus Willow, and it's Statlander versus Tekla next week. I will watch that. And then Kenny Omega versus Josh Alexander. Enjoy it now, folks. Kenny Omega is going to be gone very soon. He's not going to be able to wrestle, especially with how he was moving at this point. And bless him, diverticulitis is no joke. Regardless of the condition, regardless of how good of an athlete you are, it can take down people. Some people get over it very quickly. Alexander blindsides. Callis tries to do athletic stuff. He could never do that even during his prime in wrestling. And a slam on the apron. That was a break spot. So basically, the ribs and the back were focused on by Alexander. He did the old Kenton bomb off the second rope. A dragon suplex on the concrete. This wasn't bad, but here's the thing. I've kind of written off Alexander, regardless of how talented he is in the ring. He's not interesting. A dive outside, and Kenny did not look like he was moving too good after that. It kept going. Callis ran off at one point when the referee could have counted to like 100, and they still wouldn't have gotten back in the ring. And then One Wing Angel wins it. Omega does a post-match promo. I'm thinking that they are probably going to have Omega versus MJF at Revolution. I don't know why they wouldn't. I'm not saying Omega needs to become a 2-time champion. I don't think he should. Because I don't think he can carry it. But it'll be a big match, and MJF's one of the safest people in this company to work with Omega. And then Taz basically broke down MJF versus Bandito. And then Toni Storm or Mina Shirakawa took on Megan Bayne and Penelope Ford. Penelope apparently was only out 10 weeks and was worried she was going to be out for 2026. I'm glad she's healthy. She needs to admit that she's not good at this. She's not. I'm sorry. She should be a valet. If you want to have her in 6-woman tags, that's fine. She cannot do this. She is not, whether she's athletic or not, she is not capable of doing this on a big league level. The jump start by the faces, and then, yeah, this just kept going. It just, it wasn't awful, but every time Penelope got in the match, it just seemed to spin its wheels. And Megan ended up looking dominant. She probably should stop with the spray tan. Oh, and the Doomsday Device won it, where at least Penelope didn't go 8 feet past her this time. Oh, and Shafir stopped Tony from breaking it up. So let me get this straight. The Death Riders are the faces against the Don Callis family, I guess by default. But Shafir here is a heel doing this, and none of it makes any sense. Tony, if you can't keep this goddamn shit straight, and if you won't sit your stupid goddamn inverted-chested wife down and just say, honey, you aren't good at this, and if you won't admit that she's not good at this, Tony, if nobody will admit that Shafir's not good at this, she is one of the worst women's wrestlers that I have seen in the last 15 or so years across AEW, WWE, TNA. And I'm talking full time. I'm not talking Jenna Maraska, because that was embarrassing. That woman, quite frankly, should be almost burned in effigy, for God's sakes. The fact is any full-time wrestler, she is terrible. She is garbage, and somebody needs to tell her that she's garbage. I don't care if she's not a garbage human being. She is a terrible wrestler. Dynamite and Collision Rundown. I'm not going to bother with Saturdays for a bit for this reason. I have a Send Help early access screening to go to on Saturday, and also I just don't care. They taped Collision, by the way, here, because their residency is being kind of, tested a little bit and is put on hiatus, rather, because of what is going on with a big old snowstorm, snow and ice storm that could hit really, really big in, I think, from Texas to Oklahoma and sweep through and everything. So I hope everybody in that area, I hope you're all right. I really hope that it is not as bad as they say. I hope a lot of it dissipates. And if so, I hope everybody can stay as safe as possible. Don't drive. Any kind of amount of ice, snow, that kind of stuff, especially in that area, is no joke. I live in Washington State. It is fucking ridiculous. Right now it's fine. Right now, knock on wood. I mean, I don't have any wood to knock on. I also don't want to wake any of the pets up. But the thing is, out here, we're used to it. Not used to it all down there. So anyway, MJF is in a box with a very statuesque woman, my word. Who is that? So anyway, Kevin Knight took on Swerve. They're both faces. I guess the idea is Knight needs to prove himself. He's a trios champion in the whole, frenemy thing between Swerve and Hangman. I mean, I get it, and they can do athletic shit. I didn't mind this match, but this is another example of doing too much when you need to go home. So, yeah, Taz doing the thing about Hook. Well, your son kind of hasn't advanced at all, Taz, so he hasn't grown up much like you in your neck. And, yeah, they're both athletic. Knight could be a single star, and I really think should be sometime by the middle or end of this year. And a pile driver on the barricade later. I'm sorry. Safe or not, why? And why wasn't that the finish? Why wasn't it a count out loss for Kevin Knight? Why didn't they immediately go where he rolls him back on the ring and House call. There you go. 1, 2, 3. Nope. They kept going. Coast to coast. About a minute or so later, UFO splash, but a foot on the rope. And then basically, Knight did his own house call, and then we got strikes back and forth, and then a vertebreaker, but that's not the finish. No, big pressure, 1, 2, 3. You don't need to hit a bunch of moves repeatedly when just one will do. This is just my opinion as a wrestling fan. I just think minimizing the impact and going for the maximum effect is better, and this is a company-wide, this is an industry-wide thing. WWE does it, New Japan does it. It's a big, I would say TNA does it, but TNA barely had any wrestling on their AMC debut. Visa issues or not, it was a terrible show. I did see some of it. Enough of it to know, oh boy. But that being said, yes, I will review AEW as often as I can. If there are times you do not see a review, it's because either I was busy, I didn't get a chance to, get to it, or I just simply didn't want to. So it's going to be a week-to-week thing. That's just what I wanted to tell you. So there you are. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, Twitter, Letterboxd, Blue Sky handles in the description. And I'm John Retlin, and until we revisit the AEW world again, and Tony Khan hopefully getting his head out of the clouds, or out of the cloud, happy trails to you.